Are you ready? Let's go!
Don't you sometimes just want to talk about everything? You know, there's days when you can just talk about anything. Need to sit back and chat about nothing at all? Nothing But Julie, coming at you with fun and creative topics and interviews.
Did you hear Julie's podcast? She's got the greatest topics.
Come join the chat about everything, anything, and nothing. So unwind and tune in to Nothing But Julie. Great topics and cool interviews with some pretty awesome people. And now, without further delay, here's Nothing But Julie.
Well, hello everyone. This is your host, Julie Schrager of the Nothing But Julie podcast. I thank you in advance for listening and tuning in. I hope that you all were able to make the best of your weekend. I know that many of us are kind of back to just chilling out at home because of the Omicron variant that is incredibly contagious. So I hope that you were able to make do with what you had. I am going out of my mind yet again. Just when I thought things were on the up and up, as many of us all did, we get struck with Omicron. I don't even know who comes up with these names. And now I read that there's some other variant in France that has even more mutations than the Omicron. I don't even know what to say anymore. So let me ask you a question with regard to COVID. And it doesn't have to just be limited to COVID, but just because we're kind of, in the thick of it again, I thought, well, let me just bring this up and see how many people, agree or disagree. That's what my podcast is about. You don't ever have to agree with me, but it's just a way to kind of open up your eyes to other things. So my question to those of you who are listening is, have your relationships been affected by COVID over the last 2 years? I can't even believe I'm saying 2 years. But have your relationships been affected? Now, I'm not going onto any websites to look this up. This is completely, free speech coming from my brain. Yeah, I would have to say that a very, very small percentage of relationships that I have had have been affected by COVID. Now, in the big scheme of things, we're talking maybe one or two people, and those two people I was not close with, so it wasn't like, a painful moment for me. That we were mutual friends with my husband and I were friends, like it was couple friends. And most recently, came across someone who had the Omicron variant and kind of believes that now that this person got Omicron, that their antibodies have probably skyrocketed, and this person does not need to get the booster. Now, this person did have breakthrough. This person did have the 2 vaccines. This person had the vaccine well over 6 months ago. So at this point in time, this person is due to get the booster. And I disagreed with this person. I had said, no, it does not necessarily mean that your antibodies are through the roof. It doesn't even mean that you have many antibodies. It's, it's different for each person. Now, we're all trying to kind of discuss in the most mature way, what we feel or how we feel. And I don't know where some people are getting the facts from, but you could just read any Joe Schmo article as long as it equates to your way of thinking, you see? And if you find something that doesn't meet kind of what you've been feeling. And then you move on to the next article. Now me, I don't care if I'm right or wrong. I just want the facts. I want to be armed with the facts. And every fact-based article that I have read has stated that, and I could actually attach a link to a video that I saw from a scientist who is, he has all of the equipment to test the antibodies in someone's system. And he tested his, and he found, first of all, he had COVID, and he tested his antibodies. He put this on a graph, like some computer software. And he then got his first immunization, recorded it, took his blood after the first one to see any antibodies, and then he took another test after the second vaccination to see his antibody count. And then he got the booster. And after a short period of time, he tested his antibodies. So he has all 4 of these tests in this software program that showed that after getting the booster, his antibodies skyrocketed. He got a lot of, I would say, forced immunity from the booster. But compared to when he actually had COVID, his antibodies were very minimal. He had some. He had antibodies, but not even close to the amount of antibodies that his body created through the booster. And his antibodies were higher after the 2 vaccines than when he had COVID. And his antibodies were higher after the booster, higher than after the 2 vaccines and after COVID. And so right there was a little bit of proof that I was able to see that showed how he was able to test himself and get, a better idea as to whether the booster is even worth it. And he basically proved, hell yeah. So I sent this video to this person, and I was very nice, just wanted to show you this. I know that you think that you might be well equipped with antibodies, but this doesn't prove that you really are. And this person basically got back to me with some line of bullshit again. Like, I don't agree with it. It reminded me of a certain someone who has proof right in front of you, and that person is still denying it, even if it's a video of a person admitting guilt to something, and then he finds a way to say, oh, that's not true, or that's not the case, or whatever it is. Sorry guys, there's a truck passing by me. I live in a beautiful community, but there's a lot of stuff going on during the day. So I realized early on that as much as I really want to shake people up and challenge them and say, you're wrong, I've realized that I can't, because you just can't fix stupid, or you just can't fix people who are fixated on their beliefs. And I noticed that after me trying to get through to this person more than 2 times, and this person wound up still holding on to their beliefs, I came to the conclusion that, all right, clearly we have 2 separate ways of seeing things. Now, let me say this. It didn't, I was not prepared to take the vaccine. It was not something I had even thought of doing. I was like, no, not going to do it. Now, this was before the vaccine even came out. This was when it was in the news that a vaccine had come out, was going to come out, and that there's going to be, FDA regulations, and they're going to test it and see if it's approved. So this was like in the earlier stages. And so when that news came out, I remember a lot of people, family included, were very, very excited about this. However, with me, I was very guarded. I was questioning everything. I was questioning the efficacy of it, or, that they were just maybe being paid off, to promote this or something. I didn't really feel that it was something that I was prepared to basically be a guinea pig for. So I waited, and I realized after doing a shit ton of research, yes, a shit ton, I came to the conclusion that this particular mRNA has been around for a really long time, Pre-Obama, this is something that has been researched since it started, in the 1950s, 1960s? And the more I researched what mRNA is and what it was based on, and the difference between that and a live vaccine, and just really researching everything, I came to the realization that it was probably a really good thing. And I love how people are just so set in their ways with regard to, stop being sheep, stop believing everything you read, the anti-vaxxers who, have every right to believe what they want to believe. However, here's the deal, okay? The deal is that in the end, nothing, and I mean nothing, bad is going to happen to those who decide to get the vaccine. The worst ones I hear are, that they're putting GPS systems in our body, and just the most ridiculous things I've heard. That is coming from extremists. So because of me feeling that, the vaccines are a great thing, and this particular person basically saying, nah, kind of put space between us, and it's fine. But it kind of also made me a bit angry. Part of me was like, whatever. And I was also a bit surprised because this person does wear a mask. This person is, kind of in the health field. So I was really very surprised for someone who supposedly believes in science, because they're in the health industry. Why would that be something that now you are taking away? It's like an oxymoron, It's like, I believe in science, I'm going to study how I can have best practices for my patients, but then I'm going to turn around and I'm going to be like, yeah, science is bullshit. I wonder how your patients would feel if they knew that you didn't get the booster shot. I wonder how patients would feel if they came to a person of science and that person of science is denouncing science. I really wonder. But like I said, it wasn't much of a relationship anyway, and so the question remains, what has happened in your life with regard to relationships and COVID? I am certain that there are a lot of people out there who have experienced what I've experienced. And if your relationships have not suffered, Certainly, you have your beliefs in one thing or another, and you are reading what people are saying, and I'm sure that where your stance is, that might not be the same as others that have had stances. I'm sure that you have been a little upset or angry yourself to be reading about the difference, the humongous amount of differences in people's opinions. But I do draw the line when it comes to, the GPS, or that they're killing us off, or I don't think so. So what has happened in your life? Have you been affected, or have your relationships been affected? I do know of people whose relationships have been affected, even family members. I have to tell you, it's a continuous shitstorm. First we had to deal with 4 years of Trump being our president, of people being incredibly happy, people being incredibly pissed. It was like a mental and emotional civil war for 4 years. And then once we kind of were able to cease the shit that was produced of those 4 years, as we were getting to a close with that, we then get COVID. So it's like one shitstorm after the next, and more years of a major act that has consumed us in a way where we all have differing opinions. Now, look, the world is made up of differing opinions, and that's just how the world works. I don't think that society would be so grand if we all had the same opinion, although right now I think it would help. But there have been years and years of this shit, and I, for one, am tired with it. Completely and emotionally exhausted. I am no longer working, and I am struggling to find a way to keep myself just going each day. I'm fortunate that I have, my husband who has a good job and holds down the fort. But that's money, and that's bills, and that's life. But what about the bigger scheme of life? What about the fact that I'm going insane and that I need to be productive, and and then people are like, oh, you're so lucky, and I'm just like, shut up. Just because I'm not working doesn't mean that I'm lucky. I have always worked. I have enjoyed working. I always enjoyed waking up and knowing what I was going to be doing for the day, and pretty much for the most part looking forward to it. And so then you have people that have opinions about that. I'm really curious to know how some of you feel about what's been going on in the world. And I do get, unfortunately, when it comes to podcasts, you can't just leave your comments like, you can on social media. But I am so thrilled when listeners DM me, because it's makes me feel really great. Not only to know that people are still listening, but to know that, there are other opinions out there, and they can open my eyes to other things. But let's talk about this. Let's talk about differing opinions, not just with COVID, but just with life. How do you handle a difference of opinion? For that matter, how do you handle someone that you have known for a long period of time, and then all of a sudden you are thrust into this position where you start seeing that this person that you have been friends with for a long time completely differs from how you feel about, let's say, vaccines. Let's just stick with COVID. What do you do? I mean, what is the best way to handle that scenario? If you've been friends with this person, let's say 20 years, and let's say you are a vaxxer, and let's say that your friend is an anti-vaxxer, what then? Because that's a huge difference. A huge difference in opinion. And the question is, do you end your friendship? Do you just accept how she feels? So let's say you're trying to accept how this person feels. Let's just go with that, okay? You are going to accept how this person feels because you've been friends with them for a really long time. And now this person is like, hey, come on, let's go out and get a glass of wine or get some dinner, right? And you're like, hey, listen, this is really, really bad. It's really bad out there. It's not a very good idea that we go out right now. And then that leads to, let's say, some kind of an argument or small altercation. What do you do then? Let's say this person says to you, well, yeah, I understand how you feel, but you can't just constantly be running scared. You can't always be thinking that you're going to get it and believe the media that everyone should wear a mask and this and that. And you start to throw statistics at her. Like I said earlier, 73% of people that are getting sick with Omicron. And over 1 million people a day are getting it. So there's that. What do you say to someone who just doesn't want to listen, even to the facts? You have people that are so thick-headed and stubborn-headed with certain things that they're so set in their ways, it doesn't matter what you say. They're not even listening. They hear you. They hear your voice. They see your mouth moving, but they're not listening to you in any way. So what do you do when you have such a difference of opinion like this after all these years? What would you do? Would you let the friendship just unravel? Or would you be like, look, we clearly have different opinions about this situation, and we need to figure out if we want to continue this relationship the way it is and then set aside our differences. The question is, can you do that? I've got to tell you, lately with me, people who don't think the way I think, I'm just ready to put them to the curb. Why? Because I've had it. I've had it with 2 years of listening to people who think they know things that they're just completely not getting. I'm sick of it, and I will not participate in any kind of relationship with anyone at this point if they are not on the same page with me. And you might be like, oh, come on, Julie, that's a little rough, don't you think? And what I have to say to you about that is no. When you're friends with people, if you have a relationship with people, it's because you think the same. It's because you feel the same. It's because you have the same things in common. And you have to understand that when you start straying from those particular commonalities, there becomes a divide. It breaks the structure of the relationship. And that has nothing to just do with, COVID. That has to do with just in general. So, yeah, right now it seems as though the only people I can actually be in contact with that have that can have a relationship with me would be those that we have commonality with and believe in what I believe in when it comes to, let's say, COVID. If you're not going to get vaccinated, if you're not going to wear a mask, and you're not really going to do anything to help, even in the most minimal way, stop the spread, you're endangering my life, my son's life, my husband's life, my parents' life, my sister's life, my nieces and my nephews, and my very, very close friends who are on the same page with me. Why would I want to be friends with someone like that? Now that's my opinion. How do you guys feel? And what if it wasn't COVID? What if it was something else? After so many years of being friends with someone and finding out how different they are. And there are some people that are just too much. I mean, there are people who really are like in your face, obnoxious, kind of confrontational people that want to get their point across, even if it's not the same opinion as yours. I think that in today's world, there's such a divide. I know you know that. There's such a divide in today's world that we really need to maybe, I don't know, be a little more understanding. And I'm not talking about COVID. I'm just saying in general. You might feel one way, I might feel the other, but it doesn't mean I'm going to be a jerk to you. I'm still a nice, kind person. And I just hope that people can continue to be that way and not let what's happening in our lives take a hold in such a way where we have such a divide, because we only have one world and one life, and I'm so scared lately about what is going to be happening in this world. I'm scared for my son most especially. And you know what? I'm sad for me, because I made the decision to get married young and have a child young, and dreamt about the day that my son would be on his own and I could start crossing off things on my bucket list. And those things on my bucket list are not crossed off yet. They haven't been for the last 2 years. I'm sad that my future is a little bleak and that I can't do the things that I have been waiting to do. And it sometimes makes me feel like I made the wrong decision. You know, I should have done a lot of my bucket list stuff when I was younger and waited to get married and waited to have a kid. But I mean, I didn't. I made a decision when I was younger to do the things that I'm doing now, or what I did when I was younger. That's what I wanted to do. Who would have thought that this would be the world that we live in now, and that, you know, things would have changed so drastically. So anyway, I think that let's all just try and get along, even though we have a shit ton of differences. You know, let's all try to move on and get to a better place to where we can all accept each other, even with our differences. You don't have to be friends with that person, but you can be nice, and you can be considerate, and you can be understanding. I don't know, maybe that will help the world a little bit. What do you think, huh? Thanks so much for joining me. I hope you do have a great week. Take care, everybody.